Science defines water according to the chemical formula H2O, because a water molecule consists of 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen. But water is much more. It is the origin of all life. It is a substance shrouded in secrecy. In earlier times, people had a closer relationship with water. In our modern civilization, based on its absolute faith in technology, the ancient knowledge concerning water has lost its significance. And yet, there is much to suggest that water has powers of which we still know almost nothing. In order to explore water, it is important to observe it, to learn how to understand it, and to restore our connection with water and thus with life. As our reward, we may discover fascinating phenomena. For 30 years now, the Austrian provincial assemblyman Richard Kandut has been spending his spare time on a lake in Upper Styria, where he has had a strange experience. It's the most interesting thing I've ever seen. 3 years ago, I started working with grander equipment. Before we put it into the lake, we tested a sample of the water and had it analyzed, and we found out there were 1,100 germs in it. That means that the water was completely unfit for human consumption and even dangerous to health. No one would have believed it because it's pure spring water. 3 months later, after we'd installed the grander equipment, the figure had dropped to 50 units, and now we're at 0. That means the lake has the quality of pure drinking water. For me, there's no other explanation except that grander is responsible. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and I wouldn't try to force it on anyone. You just have to experience for yourself what I have experienced. There's simply no denying it, and I don't care how many scientists come along and try. I can see for myself what has happened in actual fact in the pond and in the lake. This top local politician believes that he has a Tyrolean naturalist to thank for the fact that a polluted lake has become clean again. Inside this hollow cylinder is nothing but energized water, which possibly contains the self-cleansing powers of original water. Apparently, this can be transferred to polluted water. It remains a mystery how water is revitalized. Only this much is known. At certain times, natural magnets set it vibrating. Johann Grander received the ancient knowledge of terrestrial magnetism from his father. I don't have a university education, you know, but I do know a bit about nature. I have observed it again and again, and that's how I figured it out. His discovery of water revitalization has had many and diverse consequences and is already being put to use worldwide. The phenomena of water revitalization cannot yet be explained scientifically, but there are many things under the sun that humankind cannot yet explain. The anomalies that we have concerning water are not a sign that the water is abnormal, but rather that our theories are not up to the demands that should be made of them. In the field of practical experience, however, we are quite a bit further along. The public swimming pool at Trauchgau in Allgäu has been fitted with water revitalization equipment for the past 4 years. This is long enough to yield medium-term results. The swimming supervisor here was originally highly skeptical of the experiment. After years of observation, he now speaks of his experience with it.
Nach ein paar Tagen war mir klar, es ist sehr wichtig fürs Bad. Also das Wasser ist ganz anders.
After only a few days, it was clear that this was very important. The water, the pool water, is completely different now. It is much milder, and I have learned that I can get by with less chlorine. That is very beneficial to the pool users. The water is milder on their skin, there's far less eye irritation, and it's also far less harmful to the environment. I've been able to reduce it by at least a third. But there are also problems. The health authorities require a certain level of chlorine, and from time to time I fall below it. And now, of course, they're constantly coming here to check the water, to make sure that there aren't really any germs, any bacteria. But it's always zero. Everything is perfect.
Das Wasser kommt hier rein, durch das Gerät.
The water flows in here through the equipment, picks up the vibrations and goes right back into the same pipe, the same as it used to. The owner of the private brewery Dial at Osterberg in Swabia also has interesting experiences to report. 9 types of beer and fruit juices are produced here. Every time we switched from bottling one beverage to another, we used a bypass and a small pipe to fill the bottling machine with a new beverage. Then we sent these bottles to vann, the State Testing and Research Institute, to have them tested. And of course we sent normal samples for comparison. And without vann knowing about it, when they tested samples of revitalized beer or revitalized beverages, the test results were clearly better. And in the case of non-alcoholic drinks, I noticed something else. In the non-alcoholic drinks, the carbon dioxide is much finer. The bubbles are not as big, but really quite a bit smaller. And that makes our non-alcoholic drinks taste much better. The fact that the State Testing Institute has confirmed the improved taste of his beverages has made Georg Dial eager to experiment. He's testing the possibility of using smaller quantities of chemicals in the cleaning operations at his brewery. And then we want to really cut back on the use of disinfectants and cleaning agents for the storage tanks, the fermentation tanks, and everything else. We want to cut back to the extreme, and in the long run, I expect to be able to save at least 50%. For an operation our size, that means spending 20,000 D-marks on cleaning agents instead of 40,000. Bernhard Pieri has also been pleased to see quality improve. He runs a non-smoking restaurant called Stern in Lengwil in the canton of Thurgau. His cuisine is famous for its vegetable specialties.
Vor 11 Jahren haben wir ja auf Nichtrauchrestaurant umgestellt und dann ist immer ein zentrales Thema gewesen, gute Qualität.
11 years ago, we decided that smoking would not be permitted in our restaurant. The central theme that sets us apart has always been high quality and value for money. And we really do have a lot of vegetarian dishes, lots of raw fruits and vegetables, lots of healthy products. With our cooked vegetables, we always used to have problems after 2 or 3 days. They started tasting like they'd come out of a can. But the problem practically disappeared the day that we installed the equipment. It's much better now. The rice that we prepare in advance keeps longer, the noodles keep longer, the vegetables keep longer, and have a much more intensive taste. I wouldn't have thought it possible. I always believed this kind of thing was sheer hocus pocus. Every 14 days we used to use highly toxic chemicals in the glass washing machine to get it clean and to get the stainless steel in the machine shining again. We had to clean the dishwasher often so that things would taste good. And if we didn't do it, if we forgot, well, we simply had to clean it every 2 months. Now we don't have to clean it at all. It stays clean. It's phenomenal. I just wouldn't have believed it. Kröner's Cafe and Pastry Shop in Garmisch-Partenkirchen is a popular destination for gourmets. Alongside Kröner's famous cake called Baumkuchen, which they export worldwide, the cafe also serves snacks.
We often
found that with our lettuce, in the kitchen where it's always hot, that if we weren't serving a lot of it, it would become a bit wilted. But now we just soak it in grander water for a quarter of an hour and it looks fresh again. It's amazing. The Hotel Post, which is also in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, has a tradition dating back centuries. Emperors and kings have stayed here. The owner, a woman with a feeling for art, is open-minded about new and unfamiliar things.
Die Lorbeerbäume bei uns im Hotel Empfang,
the laurel trees in the lobby of our hotel now have leaves that are almost twice as big as they used to be. And then there's a small olive tree with leaves almost twice as big as well. And the trees in the garden are all really getting big and have big flowers and so on. So we think this is all the result of using grander water. In the case of the laurel trees, it was really obvious. And with the olive tree too. For the past 11 years, Mathilde Willemann has been running a shop for natural products in the Lucerne suburb of Rickenbach. The crystal clear water lends a special brilliance to her sparkling fountains created from lovely stone.
Bei den Brunnen ist überhaupt keine Algenbildung mehr.
There's absolutely
Da
no
können Sie
problem with
durch die
algae in the
Ausstellung
fountains anymore.
laufen, da sehen Sie
You can
kein
walk around the
grünes
shop
Fädchen
and you won't
mehr.
find a single green
Wir
thread
haben's
anywhere.
vorwiegend aus gesundheitlichen Gründen montiert. Also das erste war der Magen meines Mannes.
But we installed it
und mein
mostly for
Magen
health
waren
reasons.
viel besser.
The first thing that we noticed was that my husband's stomach and my stomach were much improved. That's why we had it installed in our home.
Und gibt immer wieder
And there are
so
things that
Sachen,
happen
da
that
sieht
show you
man's
that it's
grad
working.
beim Duschen zum
When you take a
Beispiel,
shower,
die
for
Haut
example,
ist
your skin doesn't
nicht
get
mehr
dry,
ausgetrocknet.
and the dishwasher works better.
Das Geschirr im Spüler
It's
ist
so
besser.
wonderful. You can really see the
Also
results.
das ist so super, da sieht man das Resultat.
No two kinds of water are alike. Every type of water reacts differently. Thus, it's impossible to generalize about individual experiences. The most important goal of humankind should be to restore our harmony with water. The twin brothers Thomas and Stefan Glück work together at their painting and plastering business in Lauterbach. They have decided to use the traditional and natural techniques of craftsmanship. For the most part, the brothers use clay and natural colors. 2 years ago, they heard for the first time about revitalized water and began using it in their work.
Die einen Farbsysteme, zum Beispiel Dispersionsfarben oder Acrylsysteme, also Acryllacke.
Other kinds of paint, for example, emulsion or acrylic paints, behave slightly differently when you're applying them. That means that some kinds of paint are easier to apply, while with other kinds it doesn't make a difference. And all the paints we use have better drying characteristics, meaning that our paints dry more quickly and leave a better looking surface.
Und hat eine schönere Oberfläche.
Helmut Kopp is a dedicated engineer. In Lindenfels Winterkasten, he produces special tools for high-tech industry. Precision is the order of the day. In the fully automatic grinding equipment, water is used primarily for cooling the tools being made.
Die Erfahrung, die wir gemacht haben, ist halt so, dass wir halt vorher
The experience that we've had is simply that we used to have a dirty machine, and now we have a clean one. And now that we fill it with water from the Grandeur revitalization equipment, all the dirt has been loosened and simply washed away. And when we grind hard metal like we used to, the machine stays clean as can be. You know, it used to take us hours to clean the machine. And now we just take a hose and wash it down, brush it out, and wash the dirt away. That's all it takes. A sauna owner in Bern also takes advantage of this strong cleaning power.
Der erste Effekt, den wir festgestellt haben und der für uns sehr wichtig war, ist die Waschmittel.
The first effect that we noticed was that we were saving on detergents. We do 50 tons of laundry in a year's time and have been able to reduce our detergent use by 60%. The equipment basically paid for itself within the first 6 months, based simply on the cleaning agents, the detergents, because we use so much less of them. Water represents many things: clarity, zest for life, energy, power, and motion. Water is also a link between humans and animals. Aquarium owners have a special relationship with water, which provides a home for the fish they lovingly tend.
Hat mich angerufen, sein Aquarium, was es umgekippt.
He called me because the water in his aquarium had gone bad. Then he came to see me with his fish, half dead in a bucket. Most of them were already floating belly up. From the way things looked, the fish had had it. And the water also had an unpleasant smell. So I quickly filled a bucket with fresh water, warm water that was already the right temperature. It was Grandeur water, and within 20 minutes they were all doing just fine again. Not a single one of them died. Normally, when you see a fish swimming belly up and short of breath, when you see it struggling like that, you have to figure it won't last another 5 minutes. That all seems clear enough, but like I say, within 20 minutes they were all doing fine again. It's not only animals that gain resistance from revitalized water, plants benefit too.
Letzten Sommer hat im Ganzen, also bei uns in der Gegend, so eine Tomatenkrankheit grassiert.
Last summer we had an epidemic of tomato disease in our vegetable beds. The tomatoes turned black and the leaves withered.
Ich habe meine hier am Haus gehabt.
My tomatoes were growing next to the house. I'd raised them myself from seed, thinned them out, and watered them with grander water right from the start. And this kind of disease spreads very rapidly, from plant to plant and from bed to bed. And my plants never got it, not even in the autumn. In contrast to the degrading factory-type animal farms often seen today, Konrad and Inge Weinberger run an organic farm in Wichelsdorf. They have had extensive experience with water.
Das meiste, was uns aufgefallen ist, ist bei den Kühen. Also die haben viel vitaler.
We noticed the greatest difference with the cows. They're far more vigorous and they give more milk.
Was noch ganz gravierend ist,
and what's even more important, they're more fertile, much more fertile.
Viel fruchtbarer.
And we always used to have problems.
Immer Schwierigkeiten gehabt.
There is a direct relationship between the use of fertilizers and growth. The organic farmer Andreas Hitz has discovered a natural harmony at his farm since he began revitalizing his liquid manure.
Mit dem Güllebeleber habe ich die Erfahrung gemacht, dass die Gülle homogener wird, dass sie besser gemixt werden kann.
Using the liquid manure revitalizer, I've had the experience that the manure becomes much more homogeneous, that it becomes easier to mix and also easier to spread. And when I put the liquid manure on the plants, which are mostly small and in the case of fodder plants quite sensitive, it damages them less than manure that hasn't been revitalized. You hang the equipment in the liquid manure, and as the level rises, you raise the revitalizer as well, so that it's always hanging about 20 centimeters beneath the surface. And that's all there is to it.
Ich habe seit 2 Jahren einen Laufstall. Der Ammoniakgeruch war derart stark, dass ich nie
I've had a stable for the past 2 years, and the smell of ammonia was always so strong that I couldn't close the door. I had to let fresh air in. And now I have to say that there's hardly a pungent smell anymore. I mean, you can still smell the manure, but the odor of ammonia is practically gone. I have to admit that in the beginning I could hardly believe it, that this thing could do something like that. But I have to say, with the other things I tried, I had to keep using them all the time, and that's relatively expensive. I would recommend this equipment to anyone. Health is the greatest human good. In ancient cultures, water was considered to be an important medicament. And modern doctors and therapists are again using water more and more in the healing process. The physiotherapist Inge Krieger shares her personal experience with her patients. Last year I was ill for quite some time. I had Lyme disease, with inflammation of the cardiac muscle and meningitis, paralysis on one side, and all the other things that go along with it. I was given a whole lot of antibiotics for it, and they made me break out with psoriasis from head to toe. Then one of my patients told me about the water. I simply tried it. I started spraying myself with it. And after 2 or 3 days, you could already see how the psoriasis was improving, how the scales were disappearing, and my skin was becoming smooth. And when you look at me now, you don't see a trace of it. Even the last spots on my elbows and so forth are completely gone.
Vor 1,5 Jahren wurde ich von der
A year and a half ago, I was officially declared to be disabled. The eczema on my hands was so bad that I couldn't work, and there was an oozing, itching rash that I couldn't do anything about. And what was worse was the bed of my fingernails. The cuticles were completely raw, and that let bacteria get under the nails. So you see, my fingernails were totally deformed. And I have to say that since I started washing myself with Grander water, everything is okay again. Skin problems caused by chemicals were also the reason why Anita Held became interested in revitalized water.
Ich hatte einen Infekt im Ohr und auf das hin hatte ich ganz ein starkes Medikament.
I had an infection in my ear. I had to take really strong medicine for it, and it, in turn, caused a terrible rash around my eyes. I had that rash for around 8 months. I tried a whole lot of natural remedies. I do take a lot of natural medicine, but nothing I tried would get rid of it. And it was really bad, fiery red, and there seemed to be nothing I could do about it.
Wenn ich mit dem Finger so drüber bin über die Haut, ist es wie drunter Sandwerk.
And when I ran my fingers across my skin, it was like sandpaper. Then I washed it for 2 days with Grander water, and it was gone.
Ich habe also ziemlich schnell hintereinander 4 Kinder gekriegt und habe also einen ziemlichen
I had 4 children in pretty quick succession, and I got a rather big goiter from lack of iodine. And I also had pretty severe problems with my metabolism, nervous disorders, was sometimes depressed and aggressive. And then I got this water and used it along with my homeopathic remedies, and the goiter got smaller. And it happened without my doing anything else. The only trace that remains is what I've had ever since puberty. It is hardened and it isn't going to go away completely. But the main thing is that I'm doing so much better emotionally. I'm well balanced and harmonious, and our relationship has become harmonious too.
Bei den Menschen, die jetzt so Grander benutzen, regelmäßig benutzen, habe ich also beobachtet,
I've noticed that the people who use Grander, who use it regularly, they seem to become milder. They become friendlier, they're more open, in part to the ideas that occur to them.
Die also in ihnen durchkommen. Und
And I recognize the people. I observe how they are now and how they used to be. And then you see how this form of water, in some cases, can influence an entire family and change it. The healing power and energy of water cannot yet be definitely proven scientifically, but more and more people believe in it.
In meiner Praxis als Medikament habe ich es eben zum Anrühren von bestimmten Materialien, die ich in den Zahn tue.
In my practice, I use it as a medicament for mixing together certain materials that I put into the tooth. When there's an injury, and tooth decay is an injury, then it's the body that has to do the healing. But it can only be healing of a defect, because a substance, once it is gone, is never going to come back. We find ourselves forced to use a replacement material to close the wound, and it remains in the body for a long time. So I try to use something that will really heal and not just close the hole. And Grander water is very suitable because it has a whole lot of energy, and it's energy we need for the healing.
Und wir brauchen Energie für die Heilung.
Auch habe ich den Eindruck gewonnen, dass bei den
And I have the impression that people who use Grander for a longer period of time see their entire metabolism improve. I can see it in their blood analysis.
Blutwerte, die sonst immer bei so Menschen entweder im
Such people's lab results, which are otherwise always in a pathological range, indicative of illness, can return to normal.
Die können sich normalisieren.
Victor Gutmann has received 6 doctorates and has been nominated twice for the Nobel Prize. He advocates a new understanding of nature.
Wir müssten den Mut haben, neue Wege zu betreten und die Naturphänomene.
We have to have the courage to take new paths and to study natural phenomena, not just with regard to their applications in the development of new technologies, but with regard to understanding the processes of nature.
Der Vorgänge in der Natur.